Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start today's video with a story about a project manager who had finally had enough. After months of late-night calls, endless demands, and one nightmare client who thought urgent meant 11:30 p.m., he decided to quit. But before walking out the door, he granted her final request, and what the request is, you'll find out after a short pause. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. The client from hell wanted full access, so I gave her exactly that. A few years back, I was on my first PM job, had a few bigger household name banks as my main accounts, and then I was tasked with running the back end of a website for a special client as I have some web design experience. Well, after about a year-ish of working there, I had my bank accounts get signed on with another team, and I was just left to work the website. I was tasked with taking everything from the old platform and to move it to a newer, more streamlined one, but I'd have to build everything manually as the two sites don't like to talk with each other. After a few months of this, I get it completed and set it off for a review. I get told by my manager that it looked great and set it live. From then on, my life became hell. I would get calls, texts, and emails from the woman who runs the purchasing department and the one who used the site the most, as this website's just for internal purchasing for interior branding. She has a list of thousands of things that are wrong, things that needed to be changed, and things she wants taken down. All this is news to us. All the descriptions, sizes, images all came from the brand book, and now she was personally rewriting everything so that it looked better for her on the site. I did all this with no issues. I had nothing else to do, and this was busy work, so I didn't mind the work. It was the nonstop bothering by the purchasing woman. If I didn't answer my phone right away, I'd get a text. Then if I didn't respond to that right away, I'd get another call and an email and maybe another text just saying, hello. I was getting these calls at all hours of the day, sometimes till up to 11:30 at night, and I made it a point to never answer a single one after I left the office. This was also stressing me out and building up anxiety every time my phone went off, and my wife started to notice. I brought this up with my manager. She just said to keep doing what I was doing and respond while working, but not after hours. I eventually wrapped up all her updates and sent it off for review and got moved to a smaller project, but it was at least not website work anymore. After like a week of nothing from her, I get this massive list in all red emailed to me, my manager's boss, and the CEO of the company whose website I was working on. I get told by Big Boss and CEO that I am to answer her calls no matter what time it is. Her website is top priority, and whatever she needs done is to be done ASAP. At this point, I was already over the job. I found a better paying PM job that I'm at now and was over the stress of just anticipating another call or text from her. So I let them know that Friday was my last day. This was like Wednesday. Well, instant panic. No one else knows how to work the site. 2 days is not enough time to train someone new, and her updates need to go in now, and she'll have more over the weekend. I just said, not my issue. I can do what I can do in the 2 days, but Friday at lunch, I was leaving for good. They found some IT intern who said he had web development experience, so I sat down with him on Thursday to go over the basics, and he looked like I was speaking to him in binary. I was able to dumb it down enough to show him the basics of how to edit the text, images, and variants, but that was about it. Sometime that night, I got an email from the purchasing woman. It was another massive list of updates she demanded I change before I quit, and then some digging about how I'm screwing her over. The dig rubbed me the wrong way, so I forwarded the message to my manager, her boss, and the website CEO, and then went to bed, hatching a plan for the morning. The very first sentence in her massive list of changes she wanted was to set the website to default so that she can edit things herself and not the IT guy I had just trained. Well, little did she know, setting it back to default literally sets everything back to default and will remove all my work. Now, I could have been nice and saved a copy of everything, but I was done with her and was told already to do whatever she needed to be done, so I did just that. That was all I did that morning. I clicked, "Are you sure?" like 3 times before the site went back to default and started cleaning out my laptop and desk. I said my goodbyes to a few coworkers and left around 10:30 that morning. It was maybe around 2:30 or 3 that I get a call on my cell from my now previous manager. She's freaking out that the site is completely empty and no one is able to get anything purchased. I let her know I was just following Purchasing Lady's orders to set it to default so she could edit it, and also following Big Boss when he said to do whatever she needed done. She let out a long sigh and said, "Okay, thanks, and have a good one," or something, and hung up. I heard from a friend who still worked there that Purchasing Lady blew up, demanded we fix the site, and was going to sue me personally for making her do all this work now. I guess they did not re-sign with that client this year, and when I go to the site now, it still doesn't load properly, so not sure how they're purchasing their interior branding. The fact that the site's still broken and the contract wasn't renewed is the perfect coda. It proves you weren't the problem. You were the only thing holding a dysfunctional arrangement together. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is to stop preventing other people from facing the consequences of their own actions. You didn't burn a bridge, you simply stopped being the one paid to put out a fire they kept setting. And our next story. "Respect your elders," said the stranger who couldn't respect boundaries. I have a 1-year-old Doberman that is training to be a service dog, but she's doing so well you wouldn't even think she's in training. I've got severe PTSD and a couple of other mental health struggles, so I rarely go outside with her. Yesterday, I came across 2 women and a pit bull, and since it was in an off-leash area, I asked if our dogs could meet. My dog wasn't working at this time, just being a dog, but even then, I don't want random people petting her without permission. I had a short chat with them, and they were nice, and the owner of the pit bull said it was better they don't meet. Fine by me, I didn't push. Her friend came up to me and tried to pet my dog, so I politely asked her not to. She kept asking why, and I kept saying, "Because I don't want you to," because her tone was off and I didn't feel like justifying myself. She kept pushing until I told her she didn't need to know why. I wouldn't normally say it like this, but this woman had such a bad vibe that I felt like I had to be a bit more harsh. She walked off mumbling something about how my dog would probably attack strangers or something along those lines. Today I saw them again. I genuinely don't think there was an issue, so I kept walking, expecting to just pass them with a simple hello. The woman with the pit bull crossed the street, while the entitled woman walked up to me and started calling for my dog. I told her in a pretty strict tone to cut it out, after which she immediately started yelling. Honestly, I don't even know what exactly she said because I just kept yelling back at her to leave me and my dog alone, and that she's a service dog and that she should mind her own business. She definitely went on a rant about how I'm clearly a first-time dog owner and I'm abusing her, not letting people pet her, etc. Literally, earlier today, I hired a dog trainer to help me figure out if I needed to do things differently, and he was so impressed with how I trained her that he jokingly said that he wanted me to train his own dog. So I know I'm doing things right. She scoffed every time I said she's a service dog. At one point, she literally yelled at me to respect your elders now. It was so surreal. I stood my ground and yelled at her to leave me alone because I didn't want to let this woman walk all over me. Her friend eventually dragged her off and she called me the F slur. I told her that I will call the police next time, and I fully intend to. I'm not scared of this woman, but I am upset that she yelled at me. Luckily, my dog kept calm. This woman's lucky she isn't fully grown and that she isn't super protective. Once she's mature, she may respond differently to someone yelling at her owner like that. I'm proud of her for staying calm, though, and proud of myself for staying relatively calm. This sort of stuff is extremely triggering. At the end of the day, you can't fix stupid and you can't fix entitled. You can't educate someone who thinks they know more than you. So don't bother wasting your time and peace on anyone who tries to bully you into petting your dog, even if your dog is not working and doesn't look like a service dog. If they do ask why and it sounds like they're being demanding or entitled, I'm not in the mood or I don't have time are perfectly reasonable things to say. And our next story. He tried to build a driveway on my property. So I bought a house a year ago in a quiet Pennsylvania suburb. Behind my property sat an old farmhouse, the original estate from before the subdivision went in 30 years ago. It was barely visible through the woods, and the last owner was quiet and respectful. Then that house sold. A month ago, I came home from a week-long work trip and immediately knew something was off. There were tire tracks cutting through the grass between my house and my neighbor's. Not just muddy ruts, fresh ones, wide and deep. At first I thought maybe someone's landscaper had accidentally driven through, but when I followed the marks, I froze. There was a brand new gravel strip running straight through my yard from the street between our houses all the way back toward the tree line. It wasn't finished yet, but someone had clearly graded and laid it out to become a road. Someone was building a driveway through my yard. I stormed down the path, half expecting to find workers still there. Instead, I found a few orange cones, a parked cement mixer, and one of those cheap plastic signs that read, "Future private driveway, authorized access only." Oh, really? Authorized by who? The next morning, I went door to door trying to figure out what the hell was going on. The old farmhouse had just sold to some guy named Doug, and from what I gathered, he didn't like the long, winding driveway that came with the property. It connected to a side road about a quarter mile away, and apparently that was too inconvenient. So in his infinite wisdom, Doug decided to build himself a new shortcut right through my property. When I finally confronted him, I expected some kind of apology. What I got instead was pure arrogance. Doug showed up at my door with a folder under his arm, smirking like he was doing me a favor. "There's an easement here," he said. "Always has been. You can't stop me from using it. It's all legal." I'd gone over every page of my deed when we bought the place. No mention of an easement. No recorded right-of-way, nothing. So I told him politely, or as politely as I could, to stop construction immediately until I could verify what he was talking about. He actually laughed. "I'm already halfway through. If you interfere, I'll have my lawyer send you a cease and desist." And that's when I realized what kind of neighbor I was dealing with. Cue the week from hell. I spent every evening after work on the phone with county offices, title clerks, and the township zoning board. Nobody could find a single active easement on my property. Finally, after digging through decades-old subdivision plans, I found what Doug was clinging to, a proposed ingress-egress easement from 1977, back when the farmland was first being divided. The easement was never executed. The township later amended the development plan in the early 80s, relocating the access to another road entirely. Doug's so-called legal right-of-way had been nullified before I was even born. In other words, he was trespassing. When I told him this, he doubled down. "Easements are permanent. You can't revoke them," he snapped, like quoting a half-remembered Google search. I shot back, "And property damage is permanent too, until you pay to fix it." That's when I called my real estate attorney. She didn't waste time. The next morning, she filed a cease and desist order against Doug and the contractor. She also tipped off the township that someone was constructing a driveway without a permit. 2 days later, the inspector showed up. I came home from work to find a giant red stop work order sign nailed to a post by the gravel. The township surveyor confirmed that Doug's driveway wasn't even close to the supposed easement line. About 8 feet of it was squarely on my property. Doug wasn't happy. He showed up again, waving his folder and yelling about historic access and land rights. My attorney calmly emailed him copies of the 1980s amendment showing his easement had been void for 40 years. She then sent him a formal restoration demand, meaning he had to remove all gravel, fill the graded trench, and reseed my lawn at his own expense. That's when he tried to play tough guy. "You're making a big mistake. I got lawyers too." I smiled and said, "Then I hope they're good with property law because you're already losing." The township backed me up completely. Not only was his project unpermitted, but his contractor got hit with fines for working without inspection approval. Between that, legal fees, and restoration costs, Doug's little shortcut probably set him back tens of thousands. I watched the crew came back, the same guys who laid the gravel now shoveling it out. They were visibly annoyed, muttering under their breath as they ripped out the road they'd just built. The cement mixer truck came and hauled away what they'd poured. When they were done, they dumped fresh soil, raked it flat, and rolled out sod. Doug stood there the whole time, red-faced, watching his imaginary driveway disappear. A few weeks later, I ran into one of the township inspectors at the hardware store. He told me Doug had tried to appeal the fines, claiming he'd been misled by outdated records. The township told him that excuse didn't fly. It's his responsibility to confirm access before breaking ground. Now I can see the faint scar in the grass where his illegal driveway used to be. It's grown in a bit, but you can tell where the soil was disturbed. Funny how quiet the neighborhood feels when the only thing crossing your lawn is the lawnmower. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. Doug saw a piece of land that would make his life easier, and decided to just take it. He skipped every single step a responsible person would take: verifying the easement, getting a new survey, talking to you first, and went straight to construction. That takes a special kind of arrogance. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.